Good morning. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to our monthly Goleta Wrap meeting open to community members. We're really grateful to be with you to talk about how homelessness impacts all of our community together. So we are just going to start with a couple of quick city introductions for anyone who doesn't know, or I'll start with my team. So I'm Landon. I'm the Associate Director with SB Act. And then with me is Kai, who is our Program Administrator. Then I'll pass it over to Chuck and Jaime to introduce yourselves.
Sure.
Chuck, I'll go first. Chuck Flax, Homeless Services Coordinator, City of Goleta.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jaime Valdez, and I'm the Director of Neighborhood Services with the City of Goleta.
And
Good morning, everybody. I'm Paul
go ahead.
Medill, with City of Goleta Public Works Department, Street Division.
Thanks, Paul. Lucille, would you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. Good morning, Lucille Boss, Encampment Response Coordinator with the County of Santa Barbara.
And then Emily, I don't know if you'd be willing to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Emily Allen. I'm a Housing Program Specialist Senior with the County of Santa Barbara, helping to support our coordinated entry system.
Well, we have quite a few folks with us today from our service providing agencies as well. For everyone on this call, we encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat window, just so we can know who all is here. But we're going to go ahead and get started today with just a couple of general announcements. Number one is that we did, at least last week, have a heat advisory for Mid-County. I don't know that that has extended into South County, but I'll ask Lucille if you just share more.
Sure. I think the only extension that we had was that it would be through Monday. So outreach teams have been out throughout the week and weekends, communicating all the information that we're getting from public health and the Office of Emergency Management.
Thank you. I think as we are in these hot months, it's just important to remember it's a particularly difficult time to be outside right now. So let's just keep that in mind as we're thinking about and discussing and interacting with our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness. A couple other announcements. The next is the encampment, the camping and open fire restrictions ordinance. I don't know, Jaime, if you'd be willing to share an update about that for anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah, so we had the first reading, I believe it was on June 27th, and then we had a subsequent meeting last week, I believe it was on the 18th. For a second reading, it's a procedural item that we had to do in order to have the ordinance effectuated. But then it becomes 30 days after that effective. Well, the effective day will be 30 days after the 18th, which I believe ends up being like August 17th. So once that day hits, we have the full force and effect of the ordinance. And for those of you who may not be familiar with it, this ordinance targets certain areas of the city that are considered high risk for fire. I know a lot of people will say, but pretty much all the city is, and so is the state. But we have to have certain definitions and meet certain criteria to get there. So just briefly, in general, it would be, there's certain parcels that are kind of by themselves, but the big ones are Elwood Mesa, Lake Los Carneros, Evergreen Park. It's places where there is a significant amount of particularly trees and shrubbery and growth that could take off fairly quickly for a fire, and could be essentially unbridled if it's not contained quickly. So you could imagine places like Lake Los Caneros and the Mesa fit that criteria. There's a couple of others throughout the city. But if anyone's interested in more, you can email Chuck or I, or just go on the city's website on the July 18th meeting, and it has a full staff report with all the background information and the ordinance language itself. And so we're hoping that once we have that, it gives us a little bit more ground for being able to help folks with moving them along in certain areas we just can't have them in. And then the other part of it is it was designed to be reworded and updated to reflect the language that can be used stemming from the Boise case. So we call it being Martin v. Boise compliant. doesn't really change much, but it was more of a belt and suspenders approach. But the big part is that the high risk areas, those are the ones that we really want to focus on and make sure we don't have any, or mitigate very, very strongly the possibility of people being out there camping with open fires and things like that. So I don't know if there's anything else anybody wants to add, but that's kind of a synopsis for the group.
I think what I'll add, because there's some folks here who haven't been on these meetings before, Jaime,
Yeah.
is that Goleta's policy for people who are living on the streets is to find them housing and or shelter as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, we have a shelter shortage in the county, and actually Emily Allen and Lucille Boss, who are on the call, can speak directly to the plan at the county level to create, in fact, enough shelter beds for all of the people that are currently unsheltered in the county. And that process is moving forward rapidly. In the meantime, what we do is reach out to people using CityNet and Good Samaritan and behavioral wellness and the sheriff's co-response team and safe parking. There's a whole range of people going out into the community, talking to homeless people, trying to get them to take advantage of shelter opportunities and get on the path to housing. Unfortunately, when people refuse and continue to refuse and then remain in areas that are either dangerous or a real public nuisance, we have to exercise other powers to be able to move them along. And so that's what Jaime was referring to. This new ordinance gives the city that authority to city staff and law enforcement when people are refusing any kind of assistance to move them along out of these high fire danger areas. But I just want to be really clear that the city of Goleta has a very humane policy, and the focus is on getting people the services they need.
Thank you both. Are there any questions for Jaime or Chuck? Well, thank you. It's a really important just thing to keep in mind as we move into this high fire season. Another announcement, I don't know that we have anyone on the call who might be able to speak to this, but the city of Goleta is having another discussion at a special city council meeting tomorrow about the housing element. So for those of you who aren't familiar, this is how all of our municipalities throughout the state of California figure out how they're going to meet the required allocation of housing units designated by the state of California, that we have to keep increasing the amount of housing that we have available. This is one of the major ways we can solve homelessness ultimately, is to have more housing. And so our county has to create a housing element plan. Our cities have to create a housing element. So the city of Goleta is having another discussion about theirs tomorrow. And I don't know whether anyone, Chuck, Jaime, or Paul are able to speak to that at all, but
Yeah,
just noting it.
I can speak briefly to it. So it's July 25th. That'll be tomorrow at 5:30 to 7:30, and it's actually a joint city council planning commission meeting. We can put a link to the agenda and the item itself. And so basically it's evaluating certain sites that are in the housing element for the 2023-2031 cycle. And considering, nothing's going to be decided on, is my understanding, but they're going to be looking at different sites to rezone. So these could be sites that are technically commercial right now that they may consider to rezone to residential, or what they call sometimes upzoning, so they can make the density a little bit higher. So a lot of it is needed to be discussed and steps taken to see how we can meet these regional housing need assessment allocations that are basically given to the cities from the state, and say, hey, you need to meet this number because of the growth in your area and the growth of the state as a whole. So it's a very big deal in the sense that we're aware that there's a housing shortage, which obviously contributes to people experiencing homelessness as well. So it only compounds the issue. But this is also looking at, what else can we be doing to help bring more housing to our community, hopefully in ways that make it affordable to people, and then how that interacts with all of the other parts of the city, including police services, including roads and all the other impacts that would happen. But this is big. This is we don't really have the planning commission meet with the city council in a joint session. I think probably the last time we saw this was when the city did its zoning Title 17 zoning code update back in I think 2019. So they only do it probably every 3, 4, 5 years, if that. So if you have more questions, I think the staff report does a really good job of explaining the goals, but basically you just think looking at different sites throughout the city and considering whether or not to rezone them to provide more housing is how I'd kind of summarize it.
Well, we don't have any specific action items to push with that. We do encourage you to stay abreast of it. And if you want, Chuck put the link to the City Council / Planning Commission agenda tomorrow. And then I put the link to the housing element page that the City of Goleta has that has kind of a comprehensive overview, as well as the email address you can email to if you have any thoughts or input on creation of more housing in the City of Goleta. So. And then
one last
ahead.
thing, Landon, just one last thing. So this is something that I think all communities are grappling with. So, I don't want people to think like, oh, it's Goleta just doing it on its own. I mean, these conversations are happening up and down the state. And the issue is that the numbers that we're being asked to produce, in many ways, we kind of look at the number and are just completely baffled as to how we would get there, right? And so the same issue is happening with the county. You may have heard, people were not thrilled about possibly rezoning Glen Annie golf course. Things like that is where you would see, this kind of approach take place, which is, it's a big piece of land that's been used for one purpose. How do we get there? How do we get to use it for a different purpose? So anyways, I'll stop there. And if you're interested, please follow along to the staff report that Chuck provided. And we always welcome public input. That's a big part of the process for Goleta.
Thanks, Jaime. All right, final announcement is this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. at the Goleta Valley Library. We are having a community conversation on what should we do about homelessness. So for those of you who've been on this call for a while, you know that we try and have these calls focused on the immediate impacts and response to immediate concerns in the community. But we also want to be able to talk more about long-term solutions to homelessness, because this has come up several times on this call. We know there's quite a few community members that have an interest in this. And we also just want to help educate the public about realities of homelessness and what we can do. So we really encourage you to join us. It'll be co-hosted by SB Act with the City of Goleta, and then some representatives from the county will be there as well. Yeah, I don't know, Chuck, if you want to say anything else about it.
Sorry,
That's okay.
learning how to use Zoom here. So so tomorrow night should be an exciting conversation. It's a chance to kind of level set across the community about where we are and where we're going. And Landon has prepared a really strong presentation about homelessness in general, to dispel some myths, to address specific questions. And then we can also dig in and talk specifically about what the City of Goleta is going to be doing. So I think it's going to be a great event. I'm looking forward to it. So hope to see you there.
Just a reminder, so it's not tomorrow, it's Thursday, but tomorrow
of course,
is
Thursday.
Yeah. Tomorrow is the City Council meeting. But yeah, we hope to see you there. You can RSVP. I put the link in the chat window as well if you're interested. All right, with that, we'll go to hearing some updates from our service providers. So why don't we switch it up and hear from Safe Parking starting today? Can you go to you, Deborah?
Thank you. So you might hear some voices in the background. We've got visitors here. So we took a couple of hours on Thursday and we went out to the different areas that we spoke about at our last meeting. The links you guys sent me were great. We did make contact with a couple of people and we were able to leave flyers for several people. We also went to Elkwell, which had a few people there, a couple motorhomes that we were able to make contact with, and we just let everybody know that we're going to be out there on a regular basis and let them know about our program and the assistance to United Way to help with their registration and tickets and those things. We were able to also speak to the 86-year-old woman on Overpass Road and have a nice conversation with her. She's doesn't actually have a vehicle, but somebody loans her one to sleep in at nighttime, and she has a lot of people bringing her food. And that's where she wants to stay for as many days as she has left. She's very happy there. So we told her, but she gave us permission to come back and check on her on a regular basis too. So we'll keep working with her. But anyway, thanks for all the the links to the maps and all the assistance. I think we'll be able to make some progress soon.
Thank you, Deborah.
I'd like to add to the safe parking report for the community members. Two things. First, the vast majority of people living in Goleta who without homes, and it's a growing population, are people living in their vehicles. So it's a tall order, unfortunately, to expect that and when people are in vehicles, they're very mobile. So it's a tall order to expect that we can actually reach and work with everybody who's homeless in Goleta and living in their vehicle. But we're committed to it. So Safe Parking is doing a wonderful job reaching out to people. For those of you who have submitted specific concerns and license plates about specific people, I pass all of those on both to Safe Parking and to our CityNet team so that we can follow up with these folks and talk to them. It's complicated in a vehicle situation because people are allowed to park for up to 72 hours. However, city law doesn't allow you to sleep in your vehicle. So, but as soon as you're awake, you're not sleeping. So it's complicated, and we recognize that the cost of living is very high in Goleta. So we're really trying to work with these folks. Safe Parking's approach is to provide a place for them to stay that is not on city streets and to give them assistance to get them into housing. And they have a national reputation doing this work. So we're really thrilled to have you, and we'll continue to work on this.
Yeah, and if I could just real quick, just to clarify, so there is no, the 72 hours is if somebody calls to report a vehicle is abandoned. So obviously, if a car moves, once a day, once every 2 days, once every 3 days, there's no, complaint usually filed. I mean, you could technically park for 2 weeks as long as somebody doesn't complain to the city. So we just want to be clear that no one's car is going to get towed if they're gone for 3 days in the city, that all of a sudden it's a new, a new policy or a new regulation. It's just what it's called is an abandoned vehicle complaint. And if nobody complains, then nobody goes out to check, and if nobody goes out to check, no one gets towed or cited. So we encourage people to make sure that they keep their tags up to date, and they move their vehicle around a little bit here and there. But it is one of the complaints we get a lot for in areas that tend to have a lot of vehicles. So in Old Town and kind of over off of Elwood Beach Drive, some of those areas you'll get some complaints, but just want to make sure so nobody freaks out on the call.
And Chuck, we were also able to get all of those vehicles into Fulcrum. And so that just allows us to have more people pay attention to them and just help us track them, and helps the county to see maybe more resources that we need.
Wonderful. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah. With that, we'll switch over to Good Samaritan. See Fernando and Todd.
Good morning. This is Fernando with Good Samaritan. Last week, right after the meeting, we met up with Behavior Wellness to go out to Lake Los Carneros to try to make contact with the individual in that area. We made contact, but it was unsuccessful. The individual's not interested in services at the moment. After that, we covered the Elwood Mesa area. We had kind of connected with George, I believe. We were able to fulcrum all the area. There's only 2 active camps there. Everything else is clear and just left behind, as well as one somewhat active looking camp on UCSB property. That's kind of the joint area right there. That's City Goleta and UCSB. Aside from that, that's pretty much it. We just wanted to thank you guys for helping us with that client last week, SB Act specifically. Thank you, Landon. But yeah, that's all we have for this week, for last week's updates.
Great, thank you. And then can I go to Al or Ellen from CityNet?
This is Ellen Scully with CityNet Outreach. Outreach-wise, we focused on Old Town Goleta last week. And we also did the CES entry point on Thursday at Showers of Blessing, which I think was a success. We met a lot of new folks, got a lot of documents uploaded, people enrolled into CES. Last week was definitely a lot of chasing people around, trying to get documents for housing opportunities. We do have some good housing opportunities coming up for folks in Goleta, so now it's just a matter of making sure they have everything they need to enter those projects. I was able to connect with some individuals from sites that we haven't been able to connect with before because they came to the CES point, which I think just demonstrates the importance of having kind of those meeting points in Goleta where people can come on their terms when they're comfortable. But yeah, those are my updates for this week. We do have one that it passed, just so you guys know.
Thanks, Ellen. Yeah, Jaime.
Yeah, just real quick, and I don't know if this is on the agenda for today, but just an update on Buena Tierra. I was just gonna say, and then people can chime in after, but we got some really good news last month. May have even been a little bit longer than that, but I'm not sure if we updated this group. That project is actually heading to completion quicker than previously anticipated. We were worried it might be in December, January timeframe, but it looks like a specific part that they needed for the electrical system, they were able to secure. They had a heck of a time trying to find one that they could use at the site, but they finally secured it, and it looks like their plan is to be open in October. So I won't say beginning or middle, but things can vary a little bit, but it looks like it saved at least 2 months, if not more. So we're very excited to report that. If you've driven by it, it's looking amazing. And also just wanted to give a big shout out to the Housing Authority and the county for, the incredible, amount of work that goes into a project like that. I know the city contributed some funds, but the county came through with, a very, very hefty amount. And of course, the Housing Authority was able to secure the lion's share of it with the state program that's funding it, the Home Key project. So just real quick on that, I don't know if anyone else wanted to share anything, but it's a big deal for Goleta. So I just wanted to make sure we covered it. And it's the one at the former Super 8, sorry.
And this is Emily Allen with County, and I'm here to, I wanted to be able to answer questions people might have about referrals. We, have certainly started the process of identifying people. We started, even in advance of this, starting to work with providers to identify people who would meet the different eligibility criteria. So we do have, based on the Home Key application and the funding sources, we do have that preference for identifying people in the Goleta area. And that is the way it's being described to providers is persons residing in Goleta, Isla Vista, and the Eastern Goleta Valley. But also based on reasonable accommodations, client choice, and some of the other funding sources, we are looking at, folks outside of that area. The majority of the referrals come through the coordinated entry system, which is the process where people are assessed, for their housing needs, who are either homeless or at imminent risk of homelessness. And so some of the providers have referenced coordinated access points, and we have started a coordinated access point at the Goleta Showers of Blessing site. We also have other physical access points, and then outreach also acts as an outreach access point. So we are in case conferences on a regular basis now, looking to see who's on our coordinated entry system, who's been prioritized for permanent supportive housing, who's also been verified. So the necessary documents for housing have been collected. We're making those referrals for, individuals, also for transitional aged youth. There are rooms that are dedicated to veterans who have VASH veteran vouchers. And we anticipate in August, starting to populate the housing authorities wait lists for those different referrals. So happy to answer questions, but wanted to provide, some overall background also.
Thank you both. Any questions about Buena Tierra? So between this and a few other permanent and transitional housing projects that will be opening in South Santa Barbara County this year, we're hoping to see a good number of people exiting from street homelessness in this region, not just in the city of Goleta, but some exciting times ahead. So. Any updates from the city of Goleta staff?
I think we kind of did a little bit on each item. Chuck, I don't know if you have anything specific you want to cover, but it's just those community events coming up. And then, the biggest thing for us in the last couple of weeks has been, or last month and a half, has been the high risk fire ordinance. That's the policy side of things that really, city staff are the only people that can really carry it. Obviously the outreach and the boots on the ground has been, tremendous work by CityNet and Good Sam and others, obviously, but that's been the biggest focus. And I think the last thing I'll say is we did get the budget adopted for this fiscal year at the end of June, with a significant amount of money being set aside for resources for services to people experiencing homelessness. So I think with that, I think the city's in a good position, at least for this upcoming fiscal year, to really help and make a sizable impact. The other part is we just cut a check for a request from the county for emergency housing vouchers. So that'll help their efforts for this fiscal year. I think the check went out last week, and that was something that's been in the works for quite some time. So it's a huge team effort. The county is obviously leading the charge in many ways and holistically, but we're working well together. And I guess I like to just recognize people. So and organizations. So everyone that's been mentioned on the call so far, our sheriff's office has been amazing in supporting, and even fire with the ability to call on them, and public works and others. So obviously Chuck, it's great to have him here and help coordinate that. But from the city's perspective, it's really trying to chip away at a really sizable issue. And I think we're making progress, but maybe it might not be as quick as people hope. But we're remaining steady on the course.
Thanks, Jaime. All right, with that, why don't we open it up for any concerns or reports from community members and businesses in the community?
Wow. Since we don't see anything, I don't know if since we do have Officer Gaston on the horn, I don't know if you want to share anything or offer up anything. It's great to see you and have you participate from UCPD.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm kind of new to the group here, I would say, for those tuning in, I guess, that hasn't seen me before. I'm with the community outreach team at UCSB Police Department, and this has kind of been a task that's been added to what I'm already doing recently. And so far, we've had a couple of encampment sites in the shared region of Goleta and UCSB that I've been responding to and working with people. UCSB has a commitment to doing a holistic and tiered response to encampments and other issues surrounding houseless people. So when we have an encampment on property, we've been working with Good Sam predominantly to get them to take services or move on, or in this one case, we were actually briefing with someone who we know is generally pretty hostile towards law enforcement, and we had Fernando, the team of Fernandos with Good Sam, respond, contact them, and it really softened it up so that when I went and spoke with them later, despite the fact that we had numerous contacts with this person, they were very appreciative that we weren't the first ones in there and doing enforcement right off the bat. So it's been going pretty well. This person had a pretty sizable encampment, and we've been working with him for the last week, almost done. He's almost done packing up. He's probably got another day or two to get the rest of his stuff out of there. And he's doing so just from us asking and working with Good Sam, and now apparently signing up with Good Sam. So we're so appreciative to be part of this service, and that we're having some successes around campus with several other encampment sites as well. So that's all I have, Jaime. Just a lot of appreciation and looking forward to doing more work and trying to get some of our people either services or at least redirected. And the fact that they're moving on their own has just been incredible for us. So thank you.
Great to hear.
Thanks, Officer Gaston. We had a question in the chat from Mary about whether she could get contact info for someone from CityNet. Or if maybe Ellen, you could put something there for her. And then could I also ask, Deborah, would you be willing to share any updates you might have from the Pacific Oaks neighborhood?
Yeah, we did find several vehicles out there, and we did have a good conversation with a couple of people. Left flyers for people, walked around the park and talked to a couple of the community members. So there wasn't quite, I know there was a good amount of vehicles there. So it was a good time to go. I think we went about 11 o'clock and we found several vehicles there. A couple of vehicles we just left flyers for. But I think we can make some good progress, especially, and when I'm there, I always check people's registrations for them to make sure that that's not a barrier, and leave them a note about that. So we, we did find a couple of people who haven't been bothered by compliance or bothered by the police, and so they feel like it's a great place to park. And so we just kind of explained to them how, like the officer just said, how we're all working together and trying to make this a smooth transition. But I think now that we'll be going out there regularly, that we'll be able to, make some progress out there. A couple of people, I think there's the one woman out there who definitely needs more interaction with behavior wellness. She doesn't want any, but maybe if we just keep offering it. So yeah, I think we did a great job out there. Is there anything else that you want to add to that list out there? I mean, I could tell you license plates of all the vehicles we were able to make contact with. Okay.
No, we just wanted to check in because it's come up on these calls with community members before.
Sure.
So
Sure.
Thank you. We'll be here Wednesday night.
Anything else from anyone in the community?
Do you want to start doing?
If not, I have one or two other sites I can ask about. Deborah, I have one other one for you. I was just wondering if you had any updates about Phelps Road.
I'm not sure. Let me think about this because we did 3 hours of outreach. I don't think
So
we had-
Pacific Oaks and Phelps intersect.
They kind of, yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
they intersect right there. So yeah, so when we just did all that as one section.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then anything with the San Jose Creek. So this is a question more broadly for CityNet or Good Samaritan.
I'll answer that first. The biggest encampment in the San Jose Creek area was actually on private property. And for people who are curious, when people are camping or illegally on private property, it's really up to the property owner to enforce and either call law enforcement regarding trespassing or other violations of the law. In this case, we had complaints both from the not from the property owner, but from other property owners nearby. But we then, Officer Roush then worked with the property owner, and we were successful in relocating, I believe it was 6 people, Officer Roush, or I don't know if that, yeah. And that was one of the most impactful and largest encampments in San Jose Creek that's now been cleaned up. It's cleaned up is great in the short term. But I want to emphasize and be clear with the public that we recognize that that's not the end of the issue. We want to continue to work with those folks to try to get them housing, to make sure that they don't continue to camp out. I mean, and I think they would appreciate it as well. We've had a lot of cooperation from many of the folks in San Jose Creek. It's just difficult to find places for them to go.
Yeah, and Landon, we also spent quite a bit of time out on Patterson, both ends of Patterson, but out towards the Tascadero Creek, and there wasn't anybody there. So we went all back into the little side roads, and I know there's normally people parking in that little dirt section right there before the bike path, but there wasn't anybody there. So we will try that again at a different time of day. And even all the way back into the little side roads where we've seen people in the past. There wasn't anyone there, so we'll keep checking that.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Landon, does anyone have an update on the gentleman that was living on the bench out near Cal Taco?
I don't know if CityNet wants to, it gets complicated for the providers, Mary, because of confidentiality. But I know that man was contacted by every conceivable outreach folks, including our public works team, including behavioral wellness. And he seems to have moved along.
Yeah.
I can say, because I don't even, I wasn't connected to him directly, but the information I heard was that he was actually waiting for somebody.
Yes, he was.
And in fact, that person, I believe, came and got him. So that seems to be where he has now moved on to.
Oh, great. That's good. Thank you very much.
And last week, with regard to Elwood Mesa, it sounded like there had been a lot of progress there in terms of cleanups and individuals who had moved on. But I'm curious if there's any other updates since then. I don't see George on the call today.
Good morning, this is Todd with Good Samaritan Shelter. As Fernando touched on, we swept the entire area and updated all the fulcrums, and there's literally only 2 active encampments. We were able to engage with the one that George was concerned about. Did speak with him briefly, offered him services. We will check back with them today or tomorrow. But and they're cleared. All those sites have been completely cleaned and cleared. So it looks good out there.
Great. Thank you, Todd. All right. Anything else while we're all together?
I don't want to jinx us, but we did, and by we I mean Chuck, put in for a grant from the state for additional monies to fund kind of the efforts here locally in Goleta. We were encouraged to do so. Lucille's probably going to talk about their success on the first round, or theirs might have been round 2, maybe it was first round. But they were very successful, really encouraged us to do the same. So we're looking to get as much help as we can where we can, and the more we're able to leverage money being provided by the state and others, we'll continue to do so. I don't know what the time frame is for a response on the submission of that application, but I want to say it was August or September time frame maybe. But we would use that for upping the amount of effort we're placing on people experiencing homelessness in vehicles in particular, and then a couple of other items to see if those come to fruition. But just want to say that we're actively trying to find additional resources to help in our community.
Flexible funds, hopefully.
Yes, the more flexible, the better.
Lucille?
Yeah, I just wanted to layer on the kudos to the city of Goleta. The city of Santa Barbara also submitted an application. So this is the second round of California's encampment resolution funding. And what we've heard from the state is that anybody who is not awarded, just if the funding is exhausted for this round, they're really first in line for the next round of funding. So that will come out later this fall, probably closer to the end of this calendar year. So it's good to get them into the queue. So we're really excited and appreciate the cities of Goleta and Santa Barbara. And the city of Goleta, I think, you know, has really demonstrated a great pathway to permanent housing with their investment in the Buena Tierra project and other outreach and other collaborative efforts. So fingers crossed. I think if you don't get it for this round immediately, then you'll be in the queue, kind of really first in line to receive for the next round.
Right. So if there are no other comments or questions in this moment, we can wrap up early. Anything else before we go?
So I've had 2 cups of coffee, Landon, and people probably want to leave, but I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining. I know it's kind of tireless work efforts that have to be kind of in place, but you know, I can't say enough about how excited I am, which is kind of a weird word to say, but how much the city cares, our residents, folks like that, and to see folks participate on this type of forum, I think is very, very encouraging. And again, thank you to everybody, the providers like CityNet, Good Sam, and others. The county obviously is massive in this effort, so I'm just very grateful. So thank you.
Yeah. Second that. Appreciate seeing so many community members turn out. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. We hope to see you on Thursday, 5:30 p.m. at the Goleta Valley Library. Take care.
Thank you.